going to talk about, I guess I mentioned last week, we're going to take the Bhagavad Gita study really slowly, and you know, I'm not kind of going, okay, we're just going to do this till the end. You know, it's not like that's what we're going to do. It is going to take, especially the second chapter, as a summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita, pretty much, and we're just going to take it little bite-sized pieces to try and help you understand it in a way that's actually relevant in your daily life. You know, like we'll all go through our own battle. This is Arjuna on the battle of Kurukshetra, but we all have our own battle of Kurukshetra, and that's what it's about, is what do we do when we're going through strife, when we're having a hard time about something, you know, like how do we deal with adversity, you know, what do we fall upon, you know, how do we deal with what's going on. And so what came up last week was the idea of, you know, battle. You know, pretty much everybody who comes across Bhagavad Gita just cannot relate to the fact that this is a spiritual text, but it's on a battlefield, and Krishna, the Supreme Person, is saying to Arjuna, I want you to fight, and you know, people just can't get their head around that one, right? It's like, you know, this is supposed to be something really spiritual. How can Krishna be saying that this is a religious war, you know, that it's okay, you know, I want you to fight, you know? It's like, you know, people who, generally speaking, people who look at Bhagavad Gita are people who are actually quite reflective and soft-hearted, and so the idea of a battle is just like completely goes against the grain, you know. But if you're a military guy and you see some injustice taking place, then even though you may have a really soft heart and be compassionate, you're going to try and set things right, yeah? You know, would you say you're a soft-hearted person?
Yeah. Very.
Right, but you had a job that meant you had to be really strong on the outside, right?
Yeah, kill conflict.
Yeah, and so, you know, like, so there were some interesting things that came up. I talked to Adrian about it last week. Arjuna he didn't want to fight in this battle, right? It was like, I don't want to kill my relatives. You know, there's relatives on both sides, and even though they'd tried everything to stop this battle from taking place, and there was no way, you know, this is what was going to happen, there were relatives on both sides, and so there was going to be a lot of bloodshed, and you know, he just didn't want to do it. He's like, you know, I'm not gonna do this. I forgive them for whatever transgressors they've committed, you know, all the times they've tried to murder us, you know, even when we were young children, you know, I forgive them, you know. It's like, you know, as a soft-hearted person, even though he was a warrior and an incredibly powerful warrior, he was still incredibly soft-hearted, and so, you know, fight for principles. But you know, when it came to this kind of situation, it's like, you know, I don't want to be part of this. You know? So someone was saying, well, you know, like, about forgiveness, and Arjuna was happy to forgive them, and you know, he said he didn't even care if they killed him when, you know, he wasn't armed. You know? So there's all different kind of situations. It's not like when Krishna talks about this as a religious battle, we take it according to our understanding and what we know. And when we hear about religious wars, you know, we all know they're actually not religious wars, right? And so that we just have our own kind of understanding of what's going on around us, and we see that, you know, someone might be saying, oh, this is a religious war, but it's not. You know, it's like, we actually should be understanding that each person is part and parcel of God, whether they're this religion or that religion or whatever, you know. So we have that, we've sort of got that coloured perception, you know, because what we see is like, no, that's not a religious war. So then when we hear about this, it's like, well, this can't be a religious war either, you know. So we kind of like try to judge Krishna and his behaviour and his morals and his principles, you know. So we're setting ourselves above God and going, I don't think you've got this one right. In fact, we do that all the time. I don't think you should be doing it like this. I don't think that you should have the world going this way. I don't think you should have my karma coming back to me like this. I don't think this is right. I think this is unjust. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of our stuff all the time, right? We struggle with that, you know, God surely can't. There can't be a God. That was my father's thing. There can't be a God because, you know, there's all these things wrong in the world. It's like, there's people, people who make decisions, right? Don't say it's God's fault, you know, but we ultimately do. We blame God. Well, He's the one in control, so why doesn't He make it so these people only have nice attitudes? You know what I mean? Why doesn't He make it everybody nice? In the spiritual world, everyone's nice, but this is the material world. And, you know, we've all got our own slant on things, you know. So Adrian was saying about a situation that I thought would be really important to share, about the freeway incident, right? And about stepping up. I mean, Adrian's actually a soft-hearted guy. But, you know, like growing probably at that, like he was tough when he was younger.
Hey, you blocked my cover.
Okay. So here's a situation where you see something wrong happening, and you might have to, you don't want to be in front of a camera, it's okay, you just have to speak loud enough so you can hear. Come closer. Yeah, you don't have to go in front. Okay. So there's all sorts of situations that many people will know about. Okay.
So I was travelling home up the freeway, going towards Crayfus, and there was two cars parked on the side of the road, and one car, there was a guy sitting in it, the car door was open, and there's these two guys punching him, just like going for it, both of them, two of them. So I pulled over. It took me a while to stop, so I was probably about 100 metres down the road, and I ran up to find out what's going on, and I told them to stop, and they stopped, which was really strange. These two guys, they stopped. I just said, "Stop, what are you doing? This is crap, you shouldn't be doing this, da, 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 da." And this poor guy sitting in the car, I think it was racially motivated, because I think they just run him off the road. He was an Asian guy, and I think they told me that he cut him off, and so I was talking to them and said, "Look, even if he cut you off, you shouldn't be doing this," and somebody had already called the cops. And so I was just sort of trying to keep it all mellow, but they started to get more and more aggressive. Fortunately, another guy came, and then this one guy just started, like, he just went for me. So we ended up on the freeway, on the lane of the freeway, and the traffic stopped, and this truck driver got out, and he's going, you know, "You stop it, you guys," and because he didn't know what was going on either. And we got it all calmed down, and the cops came and dealt with it all. But the thing that I experienced is that I was able to do what I had to do, but I didn't get angry. I didn't have this overwhelming anger. It was just, you've got to do what you've got to do, keep things mellow. But, you know, they escalated it, so I had to sort of go with that. But there was no anger. Like, I didn't lose control and start smashing him or anything. It was just control the guy until the cops came, and then everything would be all right. Whereas things can sometimes get out of hand, and you get anger, and then you start, you know, going crazy, and you say, "Well, I murdered the guy because he was punching that guy." It doesn't really stand up. So that was what I got out of it. Is, you know, obviously I needed to stop. Somebody needed to stop, and I was able to deal with it. And I didn't leave there feeling really weird, or I just felt calm and felt that I'd done my duty of what I should have done to help somebody who's in distress. And there's no way that guy was going to get out of that situation. I don't know what was going to happen if somebody didn't come along. So yeah, that's my little story.
Yeah. And I just thought it was really important to share, because that was the situation with Arjuna, you know, that even though he ended up fighting in this battle, you don't have to fight with malice, right? It's like there's certain principles. You can't just go into someone's country and take their country, or you can't, you know, take the throne off somebody and just and then just sort of be a pacifist and go, "Oh, okay, you know, right? Oh, you won't give me even a house to live in. You can take the whole kingdom and not even a bit of what they say." enough land to pierce a pin on. We're not even going to give you that. So, okay, well, where do I live then, right? So, it's not like a person needs to accept that. In this situation, Krishna wanted him to fight because he wanted the people on the other side to...
The captain jumped ship.
Right.
36 people drowned and then the rest of them just...
into half. So, so there's a principle there that if you're the leader, then you have to be the leader. You can't just have your own agenda. And so Arjuna was the leader in this. He was the head military guy, and he was going, I'm out of here, and just going to leave everybody there. I was kind of like, no, you can't do this. So there's a righteous war going on here, or about to, and you need to be part of it. And so Arjuna's giving all the reasons why he doesn't think he should fight. First of all, he's, it was in the end of chapter 1. Can you please put the lights on for me? It's like, he's just had his nervous breakdown that I've been asked to do something so horrific, and I'm not going to want to live when these people have been killed on the battlefield. And he set aside his bow and arrow, and he slumped. It's like, I'm not going to fight. So then in chapter 2 is really long. It's like the longest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. A lot of the chapters are a lot shorter than this, and it's divided into sections. So the first 30 verses are on identity, and then it goes into your duty and your reputation. And then actions, the actions that we perform, the symptoms of a self-realized person, who is an actual saintly person, and about sense control and anger. So basically it's more like a summary of the Bhagavad Gita. So we may only get through this over the next few weeks, but we'll just sort of see how we go. So before I continue on, did anybody have a question from last week? I talked about there's no point in having compassion for a drowning man's clothes, right? We're going to try and, the clothes, we've got the clothes, right? You've got to look for the person. And so in daily life, we experience compassion if we have any softness in heart, and lamentation, right? Oh no, I wish that hadn't happened. Oh no, I wish things had been different. Oh no, why is it like this? And so Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami is saying in his purport here that because we don't have a clear understanding of the laws of karma, we don't understand the nature of the soul, and we're just seeing external circumstance, and we're thinking, oh no, this is terrible. Oh no, so that's our lamentation is not based on a true understanding of our spiritual nature. Right? It's just looking at this very temporary situation. Does that make sense? So, it's like, oh, this person died. Oh no, this happened. So we should always feel compassionate, but we don't need to lament for that which is a temporary situation. We're eternal. These situations we find ourselves in are really, really temporary. So. So he said, how these impurities come upon you. You're supposed to know the progressive values of life. So he was a Kshatriya, a man of great knowledge, and knowledge of being separate from this material body, that the spirit soul is an eternal living being, and that you have a duty. Right? We were saying, Adrian was saying before, you see something happening, something bad, like, the person being beaten up, innocent person being beaten up. You have a duty to perform to try and protect the innocent people. And so that's what, Arjuna's situation was. He was a warrior and he was supposed to be protecting the citizens, to try and make it so their life can be more peaceful. And he was going to neglect his duty. And so Krishna's going, how come you've just become overwhelmed with this lamentation and compassion, and that you're just going to be prepared to drop your duties of actually looking after people because you're feeling, I can't do this and I don't want to have my relatives destroyed. Does that make sense? So it's also been described that Arjuna was actually like a really, an enlightened person. But Krishna covered him by what's called yoga maya, and a potency to make it so that he could speak Bhagavad Gita. Put someone in illusion so we can have all this knowledge for all of us. So, does that make sense? Like acting out a particular kind of role, to teach. And so, and then he went on to describe, in here it says in this second verse, it says the Supreme Person, Bhagavan. And Bhagavan is another name of Krishna, and it means all opulences. Oh no, I forgot to record it, so we'll have to do it that way. And it's got in here, there's different opulences. I only remember because I need my torch. Okay. So Bhagavan explains that the Supreme Personality of Godhead possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty. He is very learned, very famous, and very much detached. But no one can claim, none of us can claim that we possess all riches, all strength, all beauty, etc. We get a little bit. If you're lucky, you get a little bit of one of them, or a bit of a few of them. Right? But only Krishna can claim that he has all of these in full, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Lord Narayan, can possess opulences as fully as Krishna. Therefore it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is a primeval Lord, or Bhagavan, known as Govinda, Krishna, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. So that is the qualities of Bhagavan. The supreme Krishna means God is all attractive. He has all those attractive features. So he said, Krishna continued, O Partha, son of Partha, his mother's name was Kunti, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Right? Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. And then Arjuna replied, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhisma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? So Bhisma's grandfather Bhisma is like an exalted personality. And he was on the other side. He was on the enemy side because of financial. He'd been taken care of financially by Dhritarashtra and his sons. And so he was obligated to be on the other side. And then Arjuna's military teacher, Drona, or Dronacharya, he was on the other side also due to political intrigue. Right? And so he was describing that they're our superiors, or they're my superiors, and so even if they're aggressors, we shouldn't respond, because they're our superiors. You just accept it, you don't do anything. And it's like, yeah, but when they are your superiors, but they've lost track of what's right and wrong, then you've got to do something about it. You can't just go, well, they're my superiors, so I'm not going to fight. Does that make sense? Right? That not in normal circumstances, the superior, you don't retaliate. We were taught that as kids, and when I was growing up, even if your parents were wrong, if they said something, you just did not answer back. Right? It was just like you wouldn't even dream of it. They were your superiors, and you behaved yourself. You never, ever would dare say anything, right? You could think whatever you liked, you definitely didn't say it. Right? And so, we were brought up with that idea, these people are superiors, and, grandparents even more so, right? might not like anything about what they're doing or saying to you, but you had to just suck it up. Right? So Arjuna was saying, it's better to live in the world by begging than it is to live at the cost of the great souls who are my teachers, even though they're avaricious. I had to look up avaricious. It means someone who is extremely greedy for wealth or fame, right? So even though they're avaricious, they're like overcome by this desire for power. Don't fight anyway. Arjuna's thing was that you don't fight. Because none of the less they are superiors. If they are killed, our spoils will be tainted with blood. And then he went on to say, we don't know what's better, to fight or to, not fight or whatever. And then he said to Krishna, now I am confused about my duty and I don't know what to do. So please instruct me. Right? And he said, now I'm a disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. And then he went on to say, I'm not going to fight. Please tell me what to do. I'll do anything you want. I'm a soul surrendered to you. I'm not going to fight. So interesting. It sounds like us. So a saintly person is always ready to forgive others for their indiscretions. But this is actually not a personal thing against Arjuna, right? This is for the good of the whole society. Right? That was the sort of main thing there. And a couple of other things here. Krishna said to Arjuna that you're going to be, people will speak, oh my goodness, sorry about the time. People will speak really unkindly of you, and for one who's been glorified and as being an incredibly powerful warrior, there'll be nothing more painful for you than to be dishonored. And Arjuna's really at this point in time, he didn't care. For any of you who have gone through kind of like a nervous breakdown type thing where you just crumbled, you just don't care about anything, right? You're done. You're just overwhelmed with whatever's going on, and you just can't think straight. It's like you only see a certain way, and it's like you can't act, right? So Arjuna's situation is that it's like, I'm not going to fight, and then please tell me what to do. So when we are really distressed, we go to Bhagavad Gita and find out, well, what did Krishna say to Arjuna to do? So the first thing he started teaching him was that nobody's going to die. All these people on the battlefield that are going to be killed, the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon. It can't be burned by fire. It can't be moistened by water. It can't be withered by the wind. Right? The soul is indestructible, immeasurable. It's actually described in I think it's Mundaka Upanishad, that the spirit soul is the size of the spirit soul is 10,000th of a tip of a hair. In other words, you can't measure it. If you've got a hair and you're going to divide it into 10,000 pieces, so that the living being, the soul, it can't be cut by a weapon, right? It can't be, by a sword or anything. It's like the tiniest little microbial creature, and you probably see them under a microscope, but there'd be some that you can't see under a microscope, And so there's a soul inside that body, right? So, when you have a giant elephant or, a huge whale, same little soul, and its influence spreads over that entire body. So the soul is, minute, and so it can't be cut, it can't be destroyed. And then everybody on this battle who dies in the presence of Krishna is actually going to be liberated. So normally what happens if there's actually a religious war, the people who are on the right side, right, fighting for goodness, they will, if they die on that battlefield, they will attain heavenly planets. Like I mentioned last week, there's higher heavenly planets, there's middle planets, and there's lower planets. And so, if you do something, like you'll hear about somebody who does some heroic thing, they dive into save somebody who's drowning, or like there's always people. There are always amazing people out there who do heroic things, and they'll die trying to save somebody. They don't just end up like everybody else who dies. They actually get a really good position next time because of their heroic action to try and save somebody. That they were prepared to, have their own body destroyed to save somebody else. So we'll explain it more next week because it's getting late already. I thought I'd try and speak for 20 minutes so I didn't kind of overwhelm you guys, but yeah, I guess talking's kind of my thing. So, does anybody have any questions? Is that too much? Kind of all in one session?
No. And thank you for making the parallel. The question was popping into my mind just immediately about how Christianity is so different to the Bhagavad Gita, and having that parallel of there's more than one way.
Yes.
A different ways, a right at a different time.
Yes.
That's so good.
Yeah, and it's like, it's so liberating, right? It's not like, in any situation, it's like I have to be able to go inside and hear what is not from my mind, what is actually from my heart that I need to do in this situation.
I think we know that in our lives as well. Like there's a time certain things happen, and then sometimes you have to do a lot of actions, and then sometimes something else happens, and then you want to do what you did last time because it worked.
Yes.
But it might not work.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Anything else?
I was thinking we should just wear pajamas and stay.
What's that?
We should have pajamas on and have hot chocolate and stay.
Would you like it to go longer? Is that what you're saying? Or just be
I suppose I need to go back to my other life, but no, it's really
Yeah. That's when a retreat day would be good.